The following is an excerpt from the book Experiences of Thought by Anthony Kahn, available now on Amazon.com and Kindle. Loving logic in matters of mind, the greatest stories ever told. There is nothing quite like getting lost in a good book or engrossed in a classic movie. They can provide us a secure way to escape from our everyday lives and experience events we otherwise could never have experienced. Fancy a quick jaunt back in time or to the far-flung future? No problem. Want to travel to exotic, inhospitable lands far away? Piece of cake. We are creatures of experience and forever crave to have new ones. But there is more to a good story than just the setting. So, what are some of the characteristics that the greatest examples of literature share in common? We learn early on in school that if we are doing a spot of creative writing, we need an introduction where we set the scene, a climax which marks the culmination of all that has transpired, and a conclusion that provides closure and wraps up any loose threads. Now, this is obviously a very generalized and simplistic breakdown of the structure of a story, and many variations on this recipe can be found. But it is nevertheless true that the most engaging stories will follow this pattern in some form or another. And it is not just stories per se that follow this logical course, but all manner of creative works. From documentaries and lectures to newspaper articles and even artistic works and architectural forms. Wherever an artist or author seeks to convey a message in a powerful and relatable way, you will see some realization of this basic recipe at work. Whenever we seek to impart knowledge to another, be that via teaching in the formal sense, or simply through the sharing of an experience or idea, we must convey our message in a way that is relatable to our audience, given their prior knowledge. Sometimes our audience may have specialized knowledge, as students in a particular discipline, whereas other times they may be of a very different background to our own. Regardless of our background, however, we are all students of life and conversant in its underlying logic. We must begin by understanding the basics. As is so often said, we must crawl before we can walk. We are also capable of limited perception and must learn to seek out key messages and the salient points in our environment, so that we have the essential knowledge with which to interpolate or deduce any secondary facts. Appreciating this fundamental need, it is natural that we center our stories and communications around key events and key messages. And as an audience, we are likewise programmed to receive and interpret larger groupings of information in this form. Lastly, we seek closure. Whilst we can tolerate having information withheld from us to a point, it is with the proviso that everything will come to make sense in the end. We like novels and films to tie off their loose ends. We like speeches and documentaries to have closing remarks that express some form of fulfillment of or reflection on the key underlying message. We even like architectural designs with features that taper off neatly rather than ending abruptly. We may not always be able to have proper closure in life, even despite our logical desire of it, but we certainly expect to be afforded the luxury in anything of human design. Beyond the simple form that we are accustomed to expecting from our literature, there is also a moral dimension to the story. We shall discuss the nature of morality in more detail later in this chapter, but it is sufficient at this point to note that we do expect the goodies to win and the baddies to lose. Now, of course, we may sometimes find ourselves positioned on the side of the law, more traditionally associated with the baddies, but we nevertheless will still have those on our side that are fundamentally goodies who we want to see triumph in the end. We expect a kind of karma to play out by the time of the ending, where we witness the good-intentioned achieving some level of prosperity, whilst our enemies get their just deserts. Above all, there must be meaning in all that we create, and in the creations of others that we come to experience. Everything that is made must be made with intent and serve a function. That function may simply be aesthetic or symbolic rather than utilitarian, but nevertheless, it is simply unfathomable to us that something should be created without reason. If meaning is implied, we expect to find it, or else our requirement for closure is not properly met. As with music, which itself embodies the same basic structures of literature in its own way, all of our creativity must be directed towards a purpose. If we do not seek to create according to the basic logic we have come to understand throughout our candidature in the school of life, then we cannot hope to produce anything of relevance or relatability for any of our peers or ultimately even ourselves. If only we could find in life that which we forever strive to achieve in all that we create, our lives would be full of purpose and every door would come to be open to us. All that do good by us would receive like reward, and all those that conspire against us would receive their comeuppance. Our every endeavor would be fated towards success in the end, and most importantly of all, we would all live happily ever after.